I'm from the ABA, and I'm here to help. I staff the Standing Committee on the Delivery of Legal Services, which last fall decided to survey the public about perspectives in finding legal services. And it came up with a report creatively titled Perspectives in Finding Legal Services. And we wanted to, we engaged Harris Interactive, surveyed 1,000 adults around the country, landline phones, we had weighted samples, and the survey was statistically significant. We know that this is a complicated, textured issue, but we could discern certain information from this survey. So in the 1990s, there were a series of surveys that asked people how they would find a lawyer. And those surveys came down to 80%, between 70 and 80% would find a lawyer through personal legal services or through a trusted source, and 20 to 30% would find a lawyer through an impersonal source like advertising, primarily the Yellow Pages. So we asked, if you were looking for a lawyer for a personal legal matter, what's the primary way you would find one? And our results came out to be 80% trusted sources, 20% impersonal sources. One of the things we wanted to look at was the role of the Yellow Pages and whether or not it was truly dead. We found that 8% of the people would rely on the Yellow Pages and 7% would rely on online sources. So they're really kind of in parity at this time. The Yellow Pages are not quite dead yet. The next thing we wanted to look at was how likely people are to turn to various online resources as online models as a resource to find it, and we used a Likert scale. And we found that there wasn't a lot of interest overall. None of the models had over 50%. Part of this is probably because of the landline basis, but we did have relativity to this, and the winners in this were Q&A sites and lawyer rating sites. And both of those got nearly 50%. And of course, lawyers are very concerned about online rating sites, but this is what the public seems to be looking for. In fact, Google has incorporated online ratings in their searches and in their local search option, and they don't care what the rating is, they just care about how many ratings there are. What surprised me the most about the survey was that the Web 2.2 mechanisms or models were not well received in this, is less than 20% for anything that might be considered Web 2.0. Maybe we had a bad question, maybe it's the landline effect, maybe it's the intimacy of the communities that are built through this, and maybe it's because it's not as pervasive. But this generated quite a lot of discussion on blogs, and we hope that the information can be constructively used by all of those who actually read the survey. Next thing we asked was about unbundling, which is an inherent part of VLO with document preparation. So we wanted to know what people thought about unbundling. And first question was how familiar they are with unbundling. And we read them a statement assuming that they didn't know what it was. So we read them a definition of what it was. And what we found was that a significant number of people were not at all familiar with unbundling. And we, in fact, 70% were not at all familiar with unbundling. But after we told them what it was, we asked them if it would be important for their lawyer that they were going to engage to offer that, and whether or not that'd be a factor in their selection. And both of those two questions, 2/3 of the people indicated that that was somewhat or very important to them. And then we asked people if they weren't going to use a lawyer, what sources would they use? And we listed a series of these, many of which were included in a 1990 survey we did, where the top 3 were judges, clerks, and lawyers. We asked people, if you weren't going to use a lawyer, what source would you use? And they said a lawyer. So we took that. We didn't think that was a good choice, so we took that out of this survey. And we found, in fact, it's judges, self-help centers, and free online services. These were by far the top, or not by far, but clearly the top tier. And this is a little Easter humor. Libraries and software were kind of the next tier. And what we found was what people really didn't like were online services that they had to pay for. And in fact, we used the Likert scale, and more than 50% of people strongly disagreed that they would use online services that they had to pay for. So the survey is online. The report is about 30 pages. I hope that you will all have a chance to read it. We've gotten some outstanding feedback so far. And if anybody wants to blog about it or talk more about it, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Be good to your waitress. Drive carefully. Thank you for the time.